to our next question. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. My question is, how can job seekers stand out in cybersecurity hiring process, especially those from non-traditional backgrounds?
Meet people in person. Like, don't rely on LinkedIn for anything except the start. You use LinkedIn to find people, and then you meet them. That's why, like, my organization sponsors meetups. Why? Because people saying, well, how do I meet people? And we're like, okay, we'll show you. We'll get you together. But again, like, keep it low cost, keep it local, right? Deepfakes don't work in person. They don't, right? By the way, return to office is a great, I work from home. Like, this is my spare bedroom. But you will have so much more impact in terms of your networking in the community if you meet people for coffee, if you go to the meetings, if you reach out your hand out with questions that are not, how do I get a job, but rather, how can I learn? How can I be like you? How did you learn what you learned, right? That's how I started. I've never asked a piece of career advice in my life, for me, never. 28 years. But I have often asked, how do you do what you do, and why do you enjoy it?
For me, the saving grace was taking a lot more in my job than I was supposed to do. So if you see some tasks that smell like cybersecurity, take them, do them as good as you can, and then put them in your CV. Because the problem now is nobody wants to hire somebody that has no experience, and how can you get experience if nobody wants to hire you? So grab some experience from whatever you can. And even if you're not doing a cybersecurity related job, try to grab some tasks that are on hand. For example, physical security. Even that, you checked this, you did that, you looked over the ISO, you look over the SOC 2 controls, ask your IT guy, do you have something for me? And learn that stuff in the beginning, read some frameworks, as we've talked before, and then Peter was super spot on. Try to meet people. What I did was I volunteered to do anything for them, from grabbing coffee to writing reports, which everybody hates. And this is how I got my first jobs.
I'd like to
volunteer.
Pivot off of that. Yeah, I'd like to pivot off that a little bit for a second. When you talk to people about their jobs, don't just talk to security people. Keep an open mind and recognize that there is a big world outside of security, and a lot of us have kind of a thing for security, maybe even a talent for it. But like, I think about back to the old timers. Like, I used to work for Marcus Random, who's people for largely forgotten him, but he was the inventor of the proxy firewall. He was the first webmaster of the White House at 16. He is a legend in the space. And I asked him one time, this was like in 2020, 2002, you know, Marcus, what would you have done if you weren't doing security today? He started Network Flight Recorder too. And he said, you know, this was never my plan. I really wanted to build MUDs, multi-user dungeons. Again, it's in Wikipedia. He said, where my heart really lied, and to some degree still is high performance computing. I got into security because it just needed to get done. And then people started buying it. And if you want to be of service, which is the response I get a lot of the time when I say, well, why are you interested in security? If being of service is what you want, like, security isn't that great a place for it. Find out what kind of service you want to do and who you care about. And you might find that what you really love is web development. You may find that you want to be a software developer. You may find that you want to be a project manager. One of the best careers, I think, going forward, going back to the original question, is product and project managers, particularly product managers, are currently in higher demand than people know, and will be increasingly so because somebody has to understand the problems to vibe code them out beforehand, right? And so just recognize that there is a place to be had all over the place for people who have a little bit of security in them and can bring that to some other domain, whether it's IT or not.
I wanted to jump in and recommend, we talked a little bit about meeting people in person, meeting folks that can help you along the way, being part of the local community. I wanted to put in a plug for some of the ways to do that. There are security conferences around the world happening all the time. You can Google them pretty easily. One that's probably in a community near you is the B-Sides conference, and you can meet people involved in all kinds of aspects. It's primarily a security focused conference, but it's not just security focused. It's like nerds of all kinds of stripes, and and even, folks on the policy, sales side, administration side, all the rest. And of course, there's a couple big ones coming up in Vegas pretty soon, DEF CON and Black Hat and such. I also wanted to go back to the original question and say, one way you can stand out in the hiring process is to not stand out negatively by doing just a little bit of research about your target. Just like in anything, you want to do a little research on your target before you start. Make sure that you craft your communications, whatever format they are, to be specific to that, or at least be relevant to them in hiring. And I was hiring for government jobs, but I suspect it's true in many places. In hiring, you get a ton of submissions that are totally irrelevant. They look like they're for a different job, and so automatically you discount all those. Don't put yourself in the discard pile immediately.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We have another question, and that is, what's the level of knowledge expected from freshers from a cybersecurity perspective? Like, do I need to learn SOC, pen test, cloud, GRC, and integrate AI in one resume?
So you might need nothing, depending on the level of the person that's hiring. And I've seen some really interesting hires in my time. It also depends what job you are gunning for. So if you gun for something that is more on the audit side, like I am, and risk side, you might need to know a little more legal. If you're gunning for something pen test-wise, you might need a little more practice on that side. But again, the level depends a lot on the person that takes the interview and on what they need. There are organizations that only need an ISO, and the level is near the floor. So don't worry about that. Just try.
Yeah. There are so many different career paths that you could go into. And I would say foundational knowledge, which, as mentioned, you can get on Coursera and YouTube and, all of these free resources, but honing in and figuring out, what is most interesting to you is going to be beneficial. And I know a lot of SOC analysts that, know little about industrial control systems, and the thought that you have to know everything isn't realistic.
Yeah, and I recommend starting with the technical background if you're fresh coming out, because GRC, of what I'm doing primarily now, you have to be able to keep them honest. You can't just take them at their word. So I have some networking experience. I started out as a pen tester. So when I talk to the folks doing the pen test, I know what should be done and what shouldn't be done. So that's really helped me as well. So I would definitely, but just like what's been said, there's so many fields. And I wouldn't recommend studying to be a SOC analyst, GRC, and then a cloud engineer. That's a lot. You're going in a few directions. I would look into what you're really passionate about, get a technical background in it, and then just, build your network and volunteer.
I would start one step before that. Get an office job, any office job, and then find the IT people. If they're security people, fine. You probably won't find them at first. Find the IT people and talk to them and get to know them. And my first IT job was at Earthlink in 1995. I was doing like tech support. I became a tech writer because I was a good typist and I was good at lists. I parlayed that eventually into a tech writing job at Citi, where for 6 weeks, and I wound up staying there a lot longer than that, I built the SOC. The first SOC I worked on, I built. And why? Because I was curious, because I would say, what should I be learning? What should I be reading? And they would tell me books like, Stevenson's TCP/IP Illustrated the Protocols. They said, buy a book on writing K-shell. So I got those books and I brought them in the office and I put them on the desk and I would read them when I was waiting for something. And one day somebody came along and said, hey, do you read those? I said, yes, I do. And he kept walking. And the next day I was given a project. And I forgot what it was. It was like about transferring a file from here to there. But I proved that I was reliable and I was eager to learn. And I cared about what they cared about. People want to work with people who care what they care about. And in the end, like I could have wound up as as Unix systems administrator for a career. I could have wound up as a project manager. I could have stayed in that SOC. There are people there who were 30 years later. But the key is like, you've got to find what you care enough to sacrifice for it. And you don't know when you're new what you're willing to spend 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day for the next 5 years on. You just don't know. One thing I do know is that we all eventually become T-shaped. So go to the search engine of choice or an LM and say, what does he mean by T-shaped? And then say, help, and then ask it, what question should I answer for you, LLM, that would help me identify what I should go deep on and where I should stay narrow. But before you get into all that stuff, just get an office job. Most security and most IT is meetings, conversations, documentation. It's shocking how little of it is actually technical when you're in terms of time.
Which leads us to a next question of a person who's coming in with excellent industry experience and top sort of cybersecurity certifications, but still facing problems finding the correct role. What do you suggest?
Refining the email. A lot of the times, the CV, a lot of the times the CV tells a story of another job. It's something that Karl mentioned prior. So when you try to apply for the position that you want, you have to present yourself just like already having it in a way. And try to show the people that you can fulfill their specific needs that they have at the time. Don't try to show potential because nobody has the time to look over potential. That is the biggest mistake that I have seen, usually. And this is why the CVs never make it to the hiring manager. They usually get lost somewhere in between. So put your CV and put the job description in your favorite LLM and ask for it to create a CV that is tailored to the job that you actually want.